A man boards a plane and wraps himself from head to toe in a plastic bag. Because there is a cemetery along the route, and according to his belief, even flying over it would defile his soul. It might seem like a strange obsession, but it's not. This is just a small reflection of a centuries-old belief system that shapes the lives of millions. We're talking about a community that completely halts life one day a week, doesn't even place meat and dairy on the same table, grows up without television or the internet, and reads only sacred texts. And this is no fairy tale. This is the daily life of millions of Jews even today. So how can such strict rules still hold in the middle of the modern world? How can a faith keep a nation both so strong and so divided? I'm Owl of Ages. In this video, I'll explore the mysterious and distinct world of the Jews. But together, we'll see not just the rules of a religion, but also what it means to be Jewish, how a society shuts itself off from the outside world to protect itself, and the truths behind this closed life. Judaism is one of the oldest monotheistic religions still in existence today. According to their belief, God sent the Torah, the first holy book, to the children of Israel. Jews view their faith as a covenant religion. In return for their faith in God, they believe God promised them the promised land, which is the geography of modern-day Israel. The word Jew comes from Judah, one of the 12 sons of the prophet Jacob. In this regard, Judaism has a unique structure that carries both ethnic and religious identity simultaneously. In Jewish belief, maternal lineage is essential. For a person to be considered Jewish, their mother must be Jewish. Therefore, marriage is very strict. A Jewish man cannot marry a non-Jewish woman. However, if the woman converts to Judaism, the marriage is permitted. Although it is possible to convert to Judaism later in life, some ultra-conservative groups argue that a person can only be a true Jew if born Jewish. These groups believe the religion should remain unique rather than spread. Historically, Judaism does not engage in missionary activities. It does not spread its faith to the outside world. One of the cornerstones of Jewish identity is the belief in being a chosen people. According to the Torah, God rewarded Abraham's faith in one God and chose the children of Israel, his descendants, for a special mission. Therefore, the children of Israel, descendants of Abraham, consider themselves chosen by God for a special task. Especially in ultra-Orthodox circles, the concept of being chosen can become more rigid and exclusionary. According to some extreme views, Jews have a special soul. Others cannot reach this level. This understanding has sometimes been expressed in controversial terms. For example, a religious leader in a 2010 sermon said, "Non-Jews were created only to serve us," which drew significant backlash. Some extreme interpreters have gone further, using striking metaphors to describe non-Jews as animals in human form. Of course, these statements do not represent all of Judaism. However, these examples strikingly show how some ultra-conservative groups see themselves as separate and special for some reason. The reflection of these beliefs in daily life is as striking as the belief systems themselves. There are rules that will make you say, "Is this real?" when you hear them. Let's take a closer look at a typical day in Jewish society. Because here, daily life is shaped not just by habits, but also by sacred rules. On Friday at sunset, life suddenly stops. No electricity, no phone. 39 different things are completely forbidden. This is not just a religious ritual, it is a philosophy of life. The daily life of Jews is tightly intertwined with religious rules and traditions. Many devout Jews start the day with a hand-washing ritual as soon as they wake up. The hands are washed 3 times, accompanied by a short prayer. This is seen as spiritual purification. Throughout the day, men pray 3 times, morning, afternoon, and evening. They face Jerusalem. They wear a prayer shawl called a talit. During prayer, they cover their heads and gently rock back and forth, which increases their concentration. In their places of worship called synagogues, there are practices such as covering the head, covering the knees, and washing hands and face before prayer. They also greet each other with Shalom Aleichem, which is noteworthy. All of this resembles similar worship habits in Islam, because both religions share similar historical roots, and these similarities are reflected in daily life. From Friday sunset to Saturday sunset, life literally stops. Electronic devices are turned off. Lighting a fire, driving a car is forbidden, and 39 types of work are considered prohibited. This is not a rule unique to Jews. It means standing against the chaotic pace of the modern world. Family members come together, light 2 candles, recite a prayer called Kiddush, and prepare a special dinner with bread and wine. Jewish nutrition and culinary culture are also shaped by religious rules. The rules called kashrut clearly specify which foods Jews should eat and which they should avoid. For example, pork, rabbit, camel, and shellfish are forbidden. Only the meat of land animals with cloven hooves and that chew their cud is considered permissible. For it to be religiously acceptable, it must be slaughtered by a trained Jewish butcher called a shochet, using a special technique that minimizes pain, and the animal's blood must be completely drained. Jews do not consume bloody meat. But the rules don't end there. It's not just about what is eaten, but also how it is consumed. Eating meat and dairy products together is strictly forbidden. This rule is derived from the Torah's command not to cook a kid in its mother's milk. In practice, after consuming a dairy product like cheese, milk, or yogurt, meat foods are not consumed immediately. There is usually a waiting period of several hours, commonly 6 hours, between the two types. Therefore, a devout Jew divides everything in the kitchen into 2 sections. Separate plates, pots, and cutlery are used for meat and dairy foods. Even the dishes for these 2 groups are washed with different sponges. Meat and dairy products are stored on separate shelves in the refrigerator. In countries like Israel, there are restaurants where dairy and meat products are completely separate. For example, in a kosher restaurant, you will never find a cheeseburger. Desserts containing dairy are presented in a separate section of the menu. Similarly, the international fast food chain McDonald's has kosher branches in Israel, and these branches do not serve milkshakes or cheese products. Before eating, Jews recite a short prayer, similar to Muslims saying Bismillah. In short, every aspect of daily life, from what they eat to how they eat, is intertwined with faith. Jews have many religious holidays and traditions throughout the year. However, their holiday called Passover involves one of the rituals that most affects daily life, and you will be very surprised when you hear it. Celebrated in April, it is a week-long holiday commemorating the Jews' liberation from slavery in Egypt. During this period, consuming any food containing yeast or fermented products is forbidden. Just before the holiday begins, all bread and yeasted foods in their homes are destroyed by burning them in a special ceremony. During that week, only thin, unleavened bread called matzah is eaten. Before Passover, Jewish families go into mobilization mode. They must purify their kitchens of even the smallest trace of yeast. A forgotten breadcrumb is a serious matter. Countertops, stoves, ovens, basically every surface that comes into contact with food is cleaned with boiling water. Special chemicals are used for purification, but even this is not enough. Because of this laborious cleaning, many devout Jews cover all kitchen surfaces with aluminum foil during the holiday. You will see the insides of cabinets, countertops, and stove edges all wrapped in shiny foil. Since it is difficult to completely clean surfaces that have come into contact with yeasted foods, covering them with foil is a widespread practice as the most reliable solution. In fact, the work doesn't end there. They clean and cover not only their home kitchens, but also their cars and even offices. Some meticulous individuals even cover their tables and living rooms with foil. To an outsider, it may seem absolutely extraordinary. However, all of this demonstrates sensitivity to the Passover command to completely avoid hametz, which refers to yeast residues. Although there are some extreme examples, don't think that all Jews cover their kitchens from top to bottom with foil. This practice is more common in devout circles, and especially in some Orthodox Hasidic communities. Before continuing, I want to say this to my dear followers. This channel may be small, but the community we've built here is truly priceless. To me. Every comment and every like I receive from you tells me I'm on the right path. Every support you give reminds me that this journey I started alone is not a solitary one. We're walking it together. I'm happy you exist. I'm happy you're part of this journey. Returning to our topic, the rules that shape daily life don't end in the kitchen. These rules are felt in every area. So how sharply are women's and men's roles divided in Judaism? Now let's look at the most striking aspect of this balance, and sometimes imbalance. In Jewish society, the roles of women and men are clear. This distinction is felt more openly, especially in religious and Orthodox circles. While men are responsible for praying with the congregation and reading the Torah 3 times a day, women take on a more home and child-centered role. Therefore, women are exempt from timed prayers. In traditional synagogues, men and women sit separately. Women usually sit in the back or upstairs and participate in worship as observers. Women are generally not allowed to read the Torah or become rabbis. Women's clothing regulations are also clear. Clothing that covers the elbows, knees, and collarbone is preferred. Long skirts and closed tops are common. Pants are generally not considered appropriate. Married women cover their hair with a wig, scarf, or bonnet. In some extreme groups, these rules go even further. For example, in Israel, a small group called Haredi Taliban even hides their faces with black veil-like coverings. However, this is an extreme example not seen in mainstream Jewish traditions. Women's voices in public are also a matter of debate. According to the handiwork rule, women's voices are not considered appropriate in the presence of unrelated men. Therefore, in some communities, women singing or dancing in public is unacceptable. Even during celebrations, men and women enjoy themselves in separate areas. Men generally wear plain black and white clothing. Covering the head is mandatory for them. Most men wear a kippah. Ultra-Orthodox men are known for their wide-brimmed black hats. You can even tell which community they belong to from the hat. Models. During holidays, they wear traditional fur-lined steel hats. In devout families, male children are introduced to religious symbols from a very young age. They are circumcised on the 8th day. At age 3, their hair is cut for the first time, leaving 2 locks at the temples. These curls are called peyot. From that moment on, the child's appearance reveals their place in society. Jewish traditions in death are lived deeply and systematically. A person who loses a loved one tears a piece of their clothing to symbolize their grief. The process, called Shiva, which begins after the funeral, is a special period where people stay at home and remain silent for 7 days. During this time, the person does not shave, wear makeup, wear leather shoes, or sleep on a comfortable bed, but instead sleeps close to the ground. Hot baths are not taken. Relatives and friends come to the home, pray, and offer support. The children of the deceased pray for them in the synagogue every day for a year. A mourning candle is always kept burning in the home. On the anniversary of the death, it is tradition to light a candle that burns for 24 hours with special prayers. All these traditions are for believing that the soul of the deceased finds peace, and for the survivors to live healthily and overcome the pain. However, all these traditions pale in comparison to the strict rules lived by some communities. There are groups that reject everything in the modern world. Now, we step into the mysterious world of Haredi and Hasidic Jews who have closed their doors to the outside world. These people live in isolation from the modern world, do not watch television or access the internet. They don't even use smartphones. They have deliberately cut their ties with the outside world. Why? In Hebrew, this community is called Haredi, meaning a person who has deep respect and fear for God's commands. Haredim try to maintain this commitment not only in their worship, but in every aspect of their lives. Decisions from where to live to whom to marry are made within the framework of religious rules set by the community. Today, about 13% of Israel's population is ultra-Orthodox, but this rate is rapidly increasing because Haredi women give birth to an average of 20 children. Marriages within the family are common, and marriages outside the family are almost non-existent. Young people are usually married at an early age through arranged marriages, while 16 out of every 100 marriages in Israel in general are arranged. This way, in Haredi society, this rate reaches up to 80%. In some Hasidic communities, a girl is married before she turns 19. Marriages are not only emotional, but also strategic. They aim to create harmonious unions between families that share the same faith and similar values. Within this closed structure, cousin marriages are sometimes seen, because in Jewish law, marrying first- and second-degree cousins is not forbidden. According to some interpretations, even uncle-niece marriage is religiously permissible. This closed lifestyle is not limited to marriages. Their education systems are also shaped entirely according to their own rules. Male children start religious education at ages 3 to 4. Torah lessons are at the center of the curriculum. Subjects like mathematics, science, history, and geography are either not taught or taught very superficially. Girls mostly receive education in morality, housework, and childcare. Therefore, when a Haredi youth reaches 18, they have very little knowledge about the modern world. This situation makes life very difficult for young people who want to leave the community. Former Haredim who say they feel like babies born into the outside world describe struggling to find jobs and communicate with people in modern life. Some fall into severe depression, while others are forced to return to the community. Because surviving outside is almost impossible for someone raised according to the internal system, military service is mandatory in Israel. However, a special exemption was applied for a long time. It was given to Haredi men. The reason is this: according to them, the holiest duty is to study the Torah. Time spent in barracks contradicts this mission. Therefore, most Haredi youth go to religious schools called yeshivas and spend their days studying religious texts. This education is like a profession for them. They provide for their livelihood through state aid or community solidarity. Life in Haredi society progresses not only with rules but also with a guidance system. Almost every family has a rabbi, a leader they are affiliated with. These religious leaders have a say in many decisions families make: where they will live, what job they will do, which technologies they will use, and which they will avoid are all part of this system. For Haredim, television can be considered the devil's machine. The internet is not forbidden, but it is limited. It is used only in areas permitted by the community. Smartphones are generally not accepted. Instead, kosher phones, which are button phones without internet browsers, are preferred. Some technology companies even produce special phone models just for Haredi communities. Limiting contact with the outside world aims to protect children and youth from moral dangers. As a result, ultra-Orthodox Jews are a community living in the heart of the modern world, but quite far from it, in a closed and tightly woven system. Their contact with the outside world is limited, their rules are strict, and their internal bonds are strong. This structure inspires both admiration and debate. But one thing is certain: these people are determined to continue their existence in the world by preserving their own truth. We have seen how Judaism, one of the oldest religions, continues to exist vividly even in the modern world, and how it has evolved in different directions while preserving its traditions. Although it sometimes presents extreme examples, I hope this information has helped us understand Jewish society and faith more closely. If this video receives the attention it needs, I plan to produce content in the future that explores the behind-the-scenes, daily life, and unknown aspects of other faith communities like Islam and Christianity. That way we can step into the worlds of different faiths together. For that, don't forget to like the video and share your valuable Opinions in the comments. I'm Owl of Ages. See you in the next documentary. Goodbye.